Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back for another installment of my hiring podcast. I'm delighted this week that I'm joined by a customer of my business, but a great friend as well in Jane James. Jane, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for asking me. It's quite a privilege, and let's see what we can share with your listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we've just finished recording Jane's podcast, and Jane's an absolute pro and has just schooled me completely in what it means to be a fantastic host. So I'm going to try my best to get up to your level, James, but Jane. But I'm going to just jump in with a few initial questions. I know most of this, but just so that anyone listening can get to know a little bit about you and your business. So please tell us who you are, and please tell us about your business.
Yeah, so my name's Jane James. On the internet, I suppose people could also find me as Jane Maudsley. That was my pre-marital name. I run a business called Little Voices. It was founded in Blackburn over 19 years ago in 2007. It's a business that helps children to find their voice, build their confidence, nurture their talent, and be the best version of themselves for whatever they want to go on and do in life. And the way we do that is through drama and singing. So I started life as a professional opera singer, doing a master's in opera, didn't enjoy the life of an opera singer, and came back to my hometown of Blackburn and started this business when I had a very, very young baby.
What a journey. So how long have you been in business? How long has Little Voices existed?
It will be 19 years in
Wow.
September this year, 2026.
Amazing. It's very similar amount of time to personnel checks, believe it or not. So the journeys of the businesses are very much aligned, which is amazing. We spoke earlier about how you came to find personnel checks. Do you mind just quickly telling people how we met?
Absolutely. So clearly, safeguarding and recruitment of the right people is incredibly important in any business, but when you're working with young people. And years and years and years ago, it was something called the CRB. It changed to the DBS. And back in the days of the CRB, we would do manual forms and check people in front of us and then send those off. And it was a really long, drawn out manual. And that went on for quite a period of time. And actually, I didn't add this in when we were chatting on my podcast, Jack, but I don't actually think at that time, no one actually tells you to go and get CRB checks done or DBS checks. It's something you kind of stumble across when you're running a business, really. Yeah. It's not in any sort of checklist that you've to tick and follow. Or it certainly wasn't in those days. We're talking nearly 20 years ago. I just knew this was an important part of what we needed to do. So CRBs it was. And then I thought there's got to be easier, simpler, a company closer to home. And I just searched up CRB processing, DBS or whatever, cost of, where it would be, Blackburn. And up came a really professional looking, I remember it being professional looking site, and the telephone number that's jumped out of me, 01254, which is a code for Blackburn. I knew it. And I was like, this must be the company. And that's how we got in touch, and we've worked together ever since.
And it's been a great partnership. There's been times over the years where you've been extremely complimentary of us. There's been times when you've said, listen, we need to fix this. It's not quite working. You've always been transparent with us, and you've always been super helpful. You've followed us through our journey as a business. When we're piloting new features and things like that, there's always the question, who's a friendly customer who will be able to sort of try this for us? And I can assure you, your name comes up a lot. And we've had a great opportunity to explore your industry as well in children's activities. So it's been a wonderful partnership, and I'm really pleased that I get to ask you some questions today about what hiring looks like in your business, because this series, the objective of it is to try and extract and distill and explore the lessons that you've learned about hiring. Not just business in general. We're kind of niching in on this notion of hiring, because that is, it's in part what our mission and vision as a company is, to help, small and medium-sized businesses in the UK hire the right people. DBS checks, background checking is one component of that, but there's a whole host more, from whatever it might be, psychometric tests, through to just, your gut feeling and the vibe that you get. So I want to pull at some of those threads and understand what's in Jane's toolbox when it comes to making decisions about people. So I'm excited to go on that journey with you today. So thank you for doing that. Tell me about the very early days of Little Voices. I've got written down here back in 2007, your daughter was a few months old. Can you take us back to that time and talk to us about the formation of Little Voices, how it happened, and guide us to the point when you had to make your first decision about a person to come on that journey with you?
Wow. And that's taking me back some years. And can I remember? Little Voices started around a coffee shop table with a friend. It was a coffee shop right next door to Marks and Spencer's in Blackburn, which I know now sadly just very
Yeah.
recently closed the doors after over 100 years.
And even more tragically, I have now nowhere to get a decent lunch in Blackburn, which is annoying. But anyway,
Okay. Well,
side point.
people to know that we do need, but it was a little coffee shop, and I was there with, at the time she had been one of my drama teachers at school, so I went to West Home School in Blackburn. She'd been one of my drama teachers. She then became a colleague because I was working at West Home alongside her as one of the singing teachers there and doing some of the classroom music as well. And we were just sat there having a coffee, and she said, look, you've got this business brain because you already run all of these different sessions yourself as a self-employed tutor, as well as working in schools, the love of the music and the singing and the voice, and I've got the acting, and we should do something together, and we should start something. Now, me at that time, and you'll probably be able to relate, and I'm sure others who have had children recently will be like, I was breastfeeding a 3-month-old baby. I was completely sleep deprived. I was working every hour God sent because I didn't have a partner at that time. I was on my own. My husband had left, and that's something I'm very open about in my story. And I was needing to pay the mortgage. So I didn't really have any time, and certainly wasn't thinking about setting up a business. And my business partner that became my business partner at that time intended for this business to open the following month in the September. That was August. So it was never a planned real strategy. It just happened on the cuff, as most great things do. And we opened on the 18th of September 2007 on a Tuesday night in the hour and a half gap that I had in the week to deliver lessons. And that the first lesson started at Blackburn School of Music on Preston New Road, and the rest, that they say, is history. She did the drama teaching, I did the singing teaching. And just to give listeners a bit of context now, although we split as business partners, and it was a challenging time for both of us very early on, because I wanted to franchise and take risks, and that wasn't an option available to her at that time. We have remained incredibly good friends, which I've talked about in my book that has been recently published. And she is now my next door neighbour, and we walk every day together. I introduced her to her now husband, so we're still very much connected and still very passionate about young people.
I mean, and you know, that really is, whether you were aware of it or not, that really does seem to me like the first who decision, the first people decision that you had to make. Do I want to go on this journey with this person? You know, business partners, split and go their separate ways all the time. I think that's a very, very normal thing in business. And I think it's great that you've been able to come full circle and you've got that relationship with them now. The question, Jane, is do you think that relationship was instrumental in getting it going at the start?
The relationship of the two of us? Absolutely. Yeah, we are and were and still are totally aligned on fantastic education for young people in the arts.
Yeah.
And putting those young people at the heart of everything. And we're totally aligned on that.
Yeah.
Alignment in terms of going forward for a future business strategy decision is very different, because it depends where your life's at that point and where are you both heading, and
absolutely.
then formulate some difficult conversations.
Yeah.
We did go on quite early in our business journey to recruit tutors to work with us, because the success of the business was quick. People saw that.
Yeah.
And we luckily worked with some incredible tutors early on and came into the business with us and worked with us from the very start. But I don't think we certainly didn't and weren't advertising for people at that point. It was a need. We needed to bring people in, and we needed the right people. And very much in those early days, apart from the compliance things that we knew we had to hit, it was very much word of mouth and who we knew and going with those gut instincts.
Yeah, absolutely. I recorded the first episode of this with a really great friend, Joe, last week, and he founded his organization in music as well. Actually, it's called the Online Recording Studio. So the idea is you write a song in your bedroom, and he will help you produce it into something that can go onto Spotify without needing to kind of go to a recording studio. So it's a brilliant business, fantastic story, and it'd be one that you could maybe check out. But he did that in the university halls where he was in Leeds, and his first hires, if you will, were the guys on his corridor who were all there studying music as well. So the early producers of the songs were the guys that he just sort of collected by being vocal about that journey. What was it, Jane? What sort of complementary and counterbalancing skills and traits existed in you and the founding business partner that gave Little Voices its energy to get off the ground and be successful early on?
It's a really interesting question and a good question. I think it was our absolute genuine love of the arts and our love of young people. And what we knew was that teaching children in one-on-one brought some benefits. We also saw teaching in huge groups brought some benefits, but teaching in a small group, which was our USP, and other people have gone on to try and replicate, and because that's what happens. But ultimately that group of 6 or 8 young people is such a fantastic dynamic for teamwork, but enough individual attention to help someone succeed. So passion, love of young people, knowledge of our subject, and just a determination to see the best in young people. We shared that, completely and utterly together.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind me pulling at the thread of where that comes from, that want to help young people succeed? I mean, we've just recorded your podcast, which is called The School Run, which is inspired by your conversations with your daughter driving to and from school. And I'm sure in that, in being a parent, I'm a parent now as well, but in being a parent, there's probably something there that really sort of energizes that mission that you've got. Is that a fair comment, or does it come from somewhere else?
I mean, it's a question for my journal this evening, that one, I think. Interesting. I do know that my love of learning and my love of then sharing that learning has been intrinsic in me from a very young age. So, and I've always been the same. If I learn something, I want to share that. I don't keep it to myself and scurry it away. So, even being a very young child, 2, 3, 4 years old, like walking around in my mum's high heels with books in my arm, sat there pretending my family were the children of the class, that learning and sharing, and that has always been part of me.
Yeah.
I guess coupled with the love of singing and finding that I had a voice and learning that at primary school and enjoying being on the stage and going for singing lessons and performing arts lessons, it all just sort of emerged that I was really lucky to find my passion, my purpose, and something that the world could pay me for at a really young age.
Yeah. Well, 3 amazing overlapping circles, which, equate to let's start a business about this. I think when you can get those 3 things, passion, purpose, and kind of profit, or some kind of, way to be paid, overlapping, the thing that sits in the middle is entrepreneurship. So yeah, congrats to you. Talk to me about where Little Voices is today. Let's fast forward from 2007. Talk me through, it's franchised now. Talk me through how many franchises you got, where you're operating, how many young people are you working with? Give me some of the headlines about Little Voices.
Yeah, so it was maybe 2 years in when I'm driving home on a rainy night down Preston New Road thinking, wow, how do we impact thousands more children and have this running in every town and location across the UK? And that's when I started to dig deep, learn about what structure that would look like. And that's when I found franchising, discussion with a good lawyer, discussion with a good accountant, and what does that look like? So I sort of fell across franchising rather than thinking we're going to be a franchise organization. And for me, it was about keeping excellence at the heart of what we'd done. As a 16-year-old, I'd worked in KFC, so I only ever thought that franchising was to do with fast food, didn't really think it was a thing for children's education or activities. I was very lucky because one of my family members was one of the first founding franchisees of a fast food establishment in the UK. So understood some of that, the complexities of that. And so, yeah, we stumbled into franchising, I would say literally. And we've been learning ever since. So we've been franchising now for about 14 years of the 19 we've been in existence. We have 35 franchisees across the UK with enormous exclusive territories. They all have numerous tutors working for them, anything up to 15, 20 members of their team. And we impact tens of thousands of young people every week, both in local communities, but also in schools, because we go in and run programs in schools. We work with now special educational needs and disabilities children with specialist program. We have cinema experiences, and there's so many different layers now of income streams to the franchise business that have come from our incredible franchisees, not me. I don't take any credit for that. The people in our business are first class. I'm really lucky to be surrounded by them. And they've brought some of the most incredible developments and ideas that we've piloted in the right way, created formulas and then rolled those out. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey.
If you think about the map of people that make up Little Voices, it turns into a pretty large family tree, I can imagine. 35 franchises. You got your I'm sure there's a bit of a head office function. Walk me through what type, not necessarily the type of people, but walk me through the types of layers in terms of roles that exist within Little Voices, because we're going to start to get into some of the questions around how you make decisions about who the right person is. So before we do that, I want to kind of understand the structure, if you will. Tell us about the people and the roles that make up Little Voices, the machine that is Little Voices.
Yeah, and I would say that franchising is fundamentally about the relationships between the people. And you're right, because every single franchisee of myself, I'm the franchisor.
Yeah.
Every one of my franchisees, it's their business. They're a local person serving local communities, employing local people, working with local people and serving local families. So each has its own almost organic, I suppose, organic tree in itself. But you've highlighted the structure quite clearly. So there's myself and the head office team. My head office team have both been with me in excess of, both of them 14, 15 years each in terms of our directors. One of them is a family member, my sister, who started as an apprentice with us. Someone else, Grace, was one of our pupils back on Preston New Road. So that's the sort of directors within the business. We've got obviously other consultants that work with us that deal with, the finance and marketing, etc. You've then got your 35 franchisees who are all their own individual entity businesses, companies, and they recruit and work with freelance tutors, and we'll have teams of anything up to around 20 operational tutors at any one time.
Wow.
And a whole host of cover teachers, or DEPs as they're known as in the acting world. Yeah, that's the sort of hierarchical structure, if you will. And within those tutors, obviously, each person takes on a slightly different role. So you'll have singing tutors, you'll have drama tutors, you'll have performing arts tutors, you'll have a lead tutor who's dealing with the level of compliance, health and safety that's needed in each venue and location. And assistant tutors, from 16, 17, 18-year-olds that come and help within the classes as well.
Sure. So let's focus on the hiring. And let's use the word hiring, but you may use a different term. How do you typically find a new franchisee?
A new franchisee. Okay, so our franchisees typically have a background in teaching, maybe want to exit the classroom in a typical sense, or they have come through the route of being within the profession and therefore want something more stable than the instability of being a freelance actor or musician. At the moment, the majority of I would say probably 70% of our network of franchisees are teachers, ex-teachers, or current educators. And they either want this as a part-time business or something that they want to go into full-time. And there's many of our franchisees that are full-time franchise owners. So that would be our franchisees, and they come to us from various different routes for sites that are talking about what the options you've got outside traditionally being a teacher as we see it, and franchise, the British Franchising Association, the Children's Activity Association, Club, and all of these referral sites that are there to give information really and options for people to look at. We do a lot of Facebook and Instagram advertising, find the right people to work with us. Do you have X, Y, and Z passion and skill set? Maybe this is something to look at.
I can imagine. I put myself in your shoes for a second. You've built this thing, you've been doing it for sort of 3, 4, 5 years under your own steam, gaining success with it, really proud of it. You build the brand, you build the identity, you build the culture, and then you think, right, I'm going to franchise it and I'm going to actually put it in the hands of this person. And then that's the first one. And then there's the second. And now we're up to 35. Is there a level of fear? Is there a level of reluctance to sort of hand your baby over to somebody else and make sure that they're going to uphold the culture, the values, the reputation of it? Because that is probably the thing that I would be most anxious about if I was in your shoes.
Is there an element of fear? I think amazing things happen at the other side of fear. So I'm naturally have an element of being a risk taker in my personality profile makeup, and that wouldn't surprise people. I think it comes down to trust, and and I look at it and explain it to people a bit like being a parent. You do need to go on nights out and have time away from your children, and you adore them, and you wouldn't just choose anybody to look after your most important thing in your world. And that's exactly as I see our franchise brand. It's not my franchise brand, it's our franchise brand. Yes, I am the biggest defender and biggest ambassador of it. However, my core purpose is to find the right person for that brand to be in the hands of. And I've not always got it right, which I'm sure
Sure.
you'll ask me questions on that in a moment, because we're not superhuman. Um, and people and human beings, notoriously you've got to find your way to find the right match and the right mix. However, you've got to trust, and I do trust the people who work with me, and they care. My goal was to find people who are like-minded, with the same passion, and want to impact young people with the same level of enthusiasm and passion and talent that I would. And we've managed to do that, so
Yeah.
it's possible.
So when you're speaking to a potential or a prospective franchisee for the first time, what is your radar scanning for?
I have so many questions to ask someone. In fact, someone perhaps thinks that they're having that initial call to find lots out about me and the business. You can find out about that from the prospectus, and I'm very happy to answer 100 questions if
Sure.
they're sent to me or delivered. But I've got lots of questions. So,
Yeah.
what's the background? What what do you stand up for? What do you stand up against? What would you describe your values as being? What makes you angry? Why have you chosen us? What stood out to you? What have
Mhm.
you noticed? So there's a huge amount of questions that I've got for somebody. And it's only through time, and I would say this is really important, they're not quick decisions. So someone might think, there's an Instagram ad, they're looking for franchisees. Within a month, I'd be making a decision. Absolutely not. Our recruitment process and discovery process for both parties to enter into this franchise marriage, as I see it, can take 6 to 12 months.
Wow. That's it's so interesting because I compare that to trying to hire someone in my business. We have to, you have to move fast. You find the right candidate. And especially in this market today, quite often you're looking at somebody who is maybe already in work. So they might be applying for a few different things. So you're going to be potentially competing with others. And if you don't make your decision quickly, you're going to lose out on a great candidate to somebody else. So we're actually talking a lot with our team, and a lot with what we see with our customers is people want hiring to go very, very fast. It's one of the big questions. The biggest question I get is, why does the DMS take so long? And it's coming from a place of we want to get people, in post working so that we can get that benefit from them. But in your world, and you're making a decision about bringing this person into your marriage, into your family, your business family, as it were, it's a long sort of courting process. And maybe you've got that time to explore that more because of the nature of the sort of the risk that they're taking as well. They are going to set up their own business, with a huge helping hand from the infrastructure back at HQ, I imagine. But there's as much of a decision for them to make as there is a decision for you to make. I think all hiring is a two-way street. But in your case, it's like a dual carriageway.
Absolutely. It's a perfect analogy. It's as, yes, and I will say to someone, at any point you can step away from this process. No
Yeah.
hard feelings. Like, I'm still here to help you with whatever question you've got in the future, or you can come back to me in 4 years' time. And people have. Or I will also feel that I can walk away, and I will be honest with you and walk away from this if I do not feel it's the right match. And I stand by that, because ultimately you're entering into a franchise agreement. So for those that don't know, a franchise agreement, usually from a BFA's recommendation, is a 5-year term. So you're 5 years in your initial marriage together. And what I'm looking for is people who want to renew and build that relationship long term. And that has happened for us. We've got some franchisees on their 3rd contract now.
Yep. Okay.
and that's important. So longevity, and it has got to be the right match from both sides. And by not having the pressure on having to turn around a recruitment decision in a short space of time, gives you enough time to look at behavior, language, communication style, how someone behaves under pressure, how responsive someone is, how reactive someone is, and all of those things. I mean, we do the profiling as well now as part of that, but equally natural behavioral styles will come through.
Yeah. So they really are signals that you're scanning for, throughout this, and as you say, it may be a 12-month journey, but that's really what you're tuned into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, even how someone responds to a WhatsApp voice note or
Yeah.
a message or an email, when you're actually applying for a job, you've probably got your best foot forward, or you would hope so. But once you've built a bit of a relationship, if you're then getting the sort of message back that's, the sentence isn't particularly thought through, constructed, these individuals working with us in our family and that are joining our network that shared success, they're going to be communicating with our parents and children and schools under our brand. And
Yeah.
I won't take that lightly. So I need to see how someone's going to show up.
Absolutely. It makes me think of a thing that we do. We've implemented this recently, and it's a way of trying to engineer a real test for that signal. And I guess the question is, are you engaged with this application process? And the way that we test for that is we hide what we call an Easter egg in the job ad. So we write the job ad, tends to be a relatively long, hopefully not too long-winded, but a relatively lengthy, page on our website or on our job board, a software that we use, our ATS. And then right in the middle of this sort of text, I will drop a sentence in there, just a freestanding sentence which says, please include the word door frame. Please include the word cup in your application. And then when they get through to the bits where they have to put their name in and upload their CV and whatnot, there's a field, there's a box that says, what word did we ask you to include in our application? And honestly, Jane, you wouldn't believe the quantity of people who skim over that and say question mark or what word or just leave it blank. And it's just so easy to filter out those applications, because at the end of the day, we want people to work here who want to work here, who have spent time to read the ad, maybe gone onto our website and looked at our careers page and our culture page and really got like a feel for what that looks like. So I think, and we're always naturally scanning for those signals in the first call, the talent call, the interview process, and even, after they've started as well. But I think there are ways that you can engineer that, earlier on as well. And that's one of the things that we've reached for recently, which has, I would say, been successful.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know the franchisees that are working with us now in our network, and the things that, like the actions that they've taken pre even picking up the phone, which is what you're alluding to here as well. The prospectus is quite a lengthy, not just a document, but it's got lots of videos as part of it and watching things and getting to know me. There's videos of ex-franchisees and current franchisees and all sorts of things. And at different stages, there's an action you can take, and we can see whether those actions have been taken. So often I'll get, I will get an email trigger and it'll say, someone's downloaded requested the prospectus. And within an hour, if I've then got the notification and they've done this and they've done that and they've done the other, you can see how someone's showing up.
Yeah. Yep. Amazing. So let's move away from franchisees for a second. Let's talk about tutors. So you had experience of hiring, recruiting, sourcing tutors in the early days. I'm sure maybe there's a little bit of that going on now still. I'm not sure. But presumably your franchisees will now be empowered to go and source and hire and make decisions about their own tutors as well. So talk to me about how that happens, and talk to me about the guidance that you're providing for the franchisees to make sure that they're getting the right people at their level of your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're always learning and getting better at these things. I'm not sitting here thinking we've got it all right, for sure. And certainly with a role for a freelance drama teacher or singing teacher, which is what we're talking about here, they are their own business in their own right.
Sure.
And they're not working full-time hours or even part-time hours, depending on the school contracts, the community locations that are needed. So you're often looking as a franchisee for tutors who are prepared to work for 3, 4, 5 hours a week for you. It might be across one venue, 2 venues. It's very sporadic work. It's term time. It's not in holidays. It's a good hourly rate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
or they can become part of our businesses and be part of one of the sort of junior partners and be part of the growth of the business and have a partnership share, etc. But ultimately, we're not talking about a full-time role here. They'll work for lots of other organizations, and we want them to. That's what
Yep.
makes them great, because they come with this fresh eyes. So to find those individuals, we have what the guidance we give our franchisees is where to find those great people. And they generally come, one of the best ones is word of mouth for other tutors you've already got working, or a neighbouring franchisee who's got people working. But then your core sort of musicteachers.co.uk sites, the Lambda website that has teachers on there, reaching out to your local networks, and then your local drama schools, music conservatoires, graduates, etc. So there's quite a process in almost headhunting who you would want as a tutor, I would say, and generally is the better way. But we also will put ads on Indeed and
Sure.
other places to get, we do get volume of applications. So that's how we'd look for them. That's the kind of guidance that we've got from a franchisee perspective. We train our tutors on safer recruitment.
Amazing.
So they all have to do safer recruitment training. They all have the stipulation of what a tutor must have in place compliance-wise.
Sure.
Lots of that is obviously working with personnel checks from a DBS, getting the updates on the update service, etc. if it's not already. Referencing, referencing both, if they can, getting on the phone to speak to a past employer, that it's a recent employer, that it's not from 3 years ago, and that they've then also got written references as well. So then watching them in a trial lesson is really important. Okay. So actually coming along, taking a lesson, how do they interact with the children? How do they interact with the parent communication at drop off and pick up? What's the content of the lesson? How do they receive feedback from that lesson? There's so many elements to this. And again, not a quick process, but with the right tutor, it's far faster than obviously recruiting a franchisee.
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense. And what sounds really considered about your process, Jane, is the variety of activity that there is going on within that. Starting with the sourcing, for example, what I really picked up on is that local network building that you alluded to at the start, whether it's your schools, your drama, local drama schools, Lambda website. We find that as well. There's a part of the team that we're looking to hire here, which will probably be more out of the local area. And then there's a part that we'll probably look to hire from sort of anywhere in the country, because sometimes we can find that skill gaps can exist in line with the geographical location as well. But in particular, we try and put a load of stuff out on social media, just basically trying to promote the message that this is a good place to work. This is a nice place to work. And it can be something as simple as fantastic photographs of our staff in our office over lunch, or just working or doing a bit of an activity or something like that. So whenever those sort of moments are happening, we're looking at trying to put that message out there. And I think one of the things that some of our customers struggle with the most is that notion of keeping momentum with that, even if you're not in like a hiring phase, and just that knowledge that always working on and always building that network, or always putting that sort of brand message out, even if it's an employer value proposition brand message, always putting that out will pay dividends in the future. Do you find that you're trying to do a similar thing as well in terms of like the Little Voices brand and promoting it as a fantastic place to work or a great thing to be involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not something I know you sent me a few questions to consider before coming on, and we've certainly not stuck to any sort of script at all, but it wasn't something that had come up for me. But just with you talking then, it was a couple of years ago where in our anonymous franchisee satisfaction survey, which we do every year with an outsourced organisation that gives us feedback, and we're proud of our 5-star satisfaction from our people, because that's the most valuable award I could ever receive, because they're, judging me. But from that feedback came, it'd be really helpful if head office were helping us to also recruit tutors at a local level. And so actually one of our pillars through social media and through our interaction on socials, literally on a weekly basis, there is a pillar that is about working with us and what that looks like, and the ways to get in touch, and the ways, not that we've necessarily got a role right now in your area of the country, but we're constantly receiving see cover letters and interest to work at Little Voices. And Hannah in our office, who's Director of Operations, deals with all of those inquiries. And we have a group where we put everyone in the same sort of social Facebook group where they can hear about us, so they're kept in touch. And then when things do come out, we can put messages out with this area of the country, there's a tutor, etc.
Amazing. Keeping that candidate pool warm is so important. Something we're trying to get better at is whenever anybody applies for a job with us and they sort of meet a certain sort of criteria threshold, we want to kind of keep them in a database and, almost like send them emails like, you weren't successful this time, but please keep your eye on what's going on at PC Group, because you never know, like there may be roles again for the future. And I just think like little touches like that just really give you a head start when you do need to hire. There'll be periods, and I'm sure you go through it as well, where you're thinking about anything but hiring, but then all of a sudden it just like, boom, oh my God, we've got to hire like 3 or 4 roles at the moment. And then it just, all of a sudden, there's this thing that's like dumped on your desk and you're trying to solve that problem as quickly as possible. I think if people made it a priority to invest in their employer brand, essentially, and just put that message out there, they'll be so much further down and so much further ahead when the moment comes.
Yeah, it's much easier to nurture and keep in touch with people that have shown an interest than have to go cold and just recruit a whole host of individuals that have
Yeah.
not had any understanding of the business or vice versa.
Sure. So let's get into the meat then. One of the key sort of components of this series that we're doing is to talk us through your best and worst hires. So let's start with the good. Let's start with the best. We're not necessarily looking to like name names or, shine a light on individual people for good or bad reasons. We're trying to extract the lessons that you've learned about hiring, collecting people, bringing people in to work with you over the years. So let's start with the best, Jane. Who was your best hire? Tell me about their role. Tell me about what they were or maybe still do in your business today. And let's get into that.
Well, I mean, you can't name names, not just because you wouldn't, but equally, I can't actually name you a name of the best hire ever. But ultimately, if I talk just from a head office perspective, I've been so lucky with both the directors that work with me. I mean, one's my sister, so let's put that to one side. But someone who's been just come organically through the organization, who's worked up, who's shown initiative, who's, and I'd say that's a big one. Someone who's shown initiative from a really young age, who's been embedded from the start, working through every layer of an organization. I think that they've got to be the best hires. I mean, even I've seen it in my franchisees.
Yep.
Where they've had pupils who've become assistant tutors and then become tutors and then become lead tutors and are sort of pushing now to want to have their own franchise. That organic circle of life stuff is just beautiful.
So you're talking about someone who was originally a student at Little Voices and eventually started doing some work with you at head office and is still in the business today?
Yes.
Amazing.
And I have a number of those. That's not just a fluke thing.
The beautiful thing about that, Jane, is that the mission of your business is to help these people find their voice, and through giving them that service, it then allows them to go on and fulfill something or achieve something, and essentially like give back and re-reach that sort of starting point for them, which is just amazing. Do you ever reflect on that and give yourself a pat on the back for your business's mission being self-fulfilling?
I don't think we ever pat ourselves on the back. I was recently at a wedding because we don't have time to reflect properly. I mean, we do. There's moments that come over us. It will happen for you too, Jack, and your parents, and the legacy. The legacy we're building is incredible, but it's not that I sit there and sort of spend a lot of time dwelling in that place. But I was at a wedding recently, and one of the guests said to me, they just said, wow, do you ever just sit and look at what has happened here? Like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis for young people, but for even some of the people in this room of guests, that I don't think about it, but it is a privilege. I'm very grateful for that privilege.
Yeah. Well, I think the story you're telling there about this particular person, or maybe a group of people, when I'm asking you the question about, who are some of the best people that you've hired, I think the fact that they've gone on that journey, starting off as students and going on to actually work for the business, be ambassadors for it, and the longevity that they've put in, it's clear that you're doing something right. So if you're not going to pat yourself on the back, Jane, I'm going to do it for you and say, huge well done. So you've got this wonderfully unique situation where your best hire has come from, I guess, you just putting your best foot forward, providing a great service, and, the natural course of things takes over. I think it's really important to acknowledge errors and mistakes that we make as well. I think with any great process, allowing errors to fuel future iterations, future improvements is a huge part of making something better. So talk to me about, we don't have to call them the worst hire ever or anything like that, but talk to me about some of the people decisions that you've made in the past that haven't gone so well and how you dealt with those challenges and what lessons they've taught you.
I think you're right to say that, not necessarily the worst hire, but there's been massive learnings in being misaligned
Yeah,
with the hire for sure.
sure.
And what my personal part has been in that has been the biggest. That's what I would spend time reflecting on. We always I
Yeah,
sweat small stuff,
sure.
and I think it's important, and what have been the bits that have not been quite right. One that comes into my mind is that actually I delegated some of the recruitment side of things, but I hadn't delegated effectively enough, and missed some of those crucial things that perhaps I just naturally lent into and would notice or not notice, and they weren't picked up. So it was a failing in my kind of delegation there. I think generally just not being the right fit, maybe listening to a lot of words and going with that gut feeling, but not actually unpicking values led within a human being. And we all have different values, and they're not good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying that, but they have to be married correctly for this relationship to work in franchising or with a franchisee and a tutor. So I think the values bit has been something we've learned a lot to make sure they're aligned from the start and having processes around that. And I suppose just ensuring from having those mistakes that you are able to pick up on them quickly enough and
Yeah.
have confidence to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've hit on, three really key areas that a lot of business owners, people running their small businesses, the types of mistakes that they will have made and the types of feelings, that are with them as well. Not everyone is a fit. You're absolutely right. We're not all designed to, work with each other every day, every Monday to Friday for 8 hours a day. And there may be the right organization for you elsewhere. And that third point you make about making a decision to, fix that problem quickly, I think it's one of the hardest things that people don't talk about too much in, running business and entrepreneurship. But it's like, how do I deal with this problem? Well, welcome to being a business owner. Welcome to being an entrepreneur. And welcome to having your first difficult conversation. But like, guess what? The second one's easier, still hard. And then the third one's easy. And then I don't know, eventually just becomes normal and it becomes part of your day to day, tackling difficult conversations with people. But I think you've really sort of like zoomed in on some of the key challenges that business owners will face when they're hiring. You're never going to get it right first time. And we've got to embrace those mistakes. From where you are now, related to what you were talking about when you said you delegated poorly, where do you place this question of hiring, people decisions, who decisions maybe, in your list of priorities as a business owner? Is it something that's way up at the top, or is it something that's maybe a bit further down?
For me, it's right at the top, because a company by its very definition is about its people. It's a company of people. You use the same phrase in the theatre. You have a theatre company.
Yeah.
It's a company of human beings. So your recruitment decisions are absolutely critical to the success of an organization. And if you recruit and look after your people, they will look after your people, which are your customers. And for us, that's families. I don't refer to them as customers. They're our families, and we're one big family. So recruitment for me, and that's probably where, several years ago when I was growing and as a business owner, as a small to medium business owner, you're told to delegate and delegate and delegate and basically make yourself redundant. But there's certain things that I've become to know about myself that I'm really good at. It's what I'm best doing. And actually the people part of our business and the recruitment part of our business is the bit that I'm in flow with. So I think you have to not think about that whole, I do not really believe any CEO or founder that's saying they've made themselves redundant and they're sat on a beach. I cannot even see that that's a possibility.
100%.
And your people are your main part of your business.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we are so aligned. I've gone through, I guess, a bit of an epiphany recently. Started posting on LinkedIn about 6 months ago with the goal of essentially trying to get people to buy into what you've just said, prioritizing hiring, making yourself the head of recruitment in your business. Even if you've got, I don't know, like a head of HR, or you've got a recruitment agency that you work with, it's fine. Like, the methodology that you employ to get people to come and work for you, there are loads of different ways of doing it, loads of different ways to skin that cat. But the message that I'm trying to get out there is, you as the business owner, you as the CEO, the founder, whatever, the managing director, you have to make yourself the head of recruitment, and you have to be involved in the people decisions, and you have to set the standard for what they look like. And adding adding an ingredient into the mixture of your business is going to change the dynamic. It's going to change the culture. It's going to change the chemistry in some way. So you've got to own that decision. And I think, a huge part of the identity and the values of your business, they just flow out of you. So it's only natural that you should be heavily involved in that part of it. So it feels like we're very aligned there. Because I too spent a bit of time away from that, didn't treat it as a priority, delegated it to agency or other people in the organization. And I've come full circle and realized that was not the right thing. And I'm absolutely loving being involved in it again. I was doing, talent calls, and we're interviewing for roles at the moment, and I'm getting such a kick out of it. I think it's amazing work, and some of the best and most valuable work that I can do, spend my time on to help grow this business.
Yeah, and equally, that's not saying that it's just the buck stops with me either. Like, we've
Sure.
got a sense of shared success within Little Voices. Franchising by its very nature is shared success, because successful franchisees means we're successful. And if we're successful and they're successful, there's a happiness there. And
Yep.
then it's osmosis through the network.
Sure.
We do have our current franchisees who are involved in recruitment decisions as well. And because ultimately, bringing in the wrong franchisee who's unhappy, who's not going to be successful, won't be putting the management fee royalty back into the franchisor, which is where we build the brand from out as well. So it really is using everything. We've recently added one more layer to our already 6-step discovery process, where the potential franchisee does a presentation to the board of other franchisees and head office members of staff. And next year, we're going to look at this more recruitment process on one day as well, where it's sort of, again, further sharing the success of recruiting the right people.
Amazing. Jane, it's been amazing talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing your insights. We're going to finish off with a few quick fire questions, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, go with them.
Give me one question that you are asking in every interview, or in your case, maybe discovery calls. Give me one question that you're asking in every interview, and why.
So I would say your motivation for wanting to work with children. And I suppose the why to that is I'm curious. I'm actually curious. I'm interested in the answer.
Yeah.
Question's one thing. I'm interested in the answer. I'm curious to know what's the motivator.
And this is quick fire. Let me pull a thread quickly. What's an answer you love to hear when you ask that why?
I almost want to hear some of the language of us coming through. If you're in a
Yeah.
room at one of our conferences, Jack, pretty much all of us within Little Voice family talk the same language, and I'm looking for those things that children at the heart of everything that counts. Children are the next generation. Children deserve to be seen and heard.
And do you have that language written down somewhere? Is it like in a glossary or a book or something?
No, it's not. It's actually not. It literally is a ripple effect of
Wow.
how the organization shows up.
Amazing. That's so interesting. Like, you can recognize people speaking the Little Voices language. Like, that is, for me, that's like a huge kind of like cultural component of your business that we've just sort of uncovered there. The reason I ask, is it written down, is because I think it's already a large organization, but as it gets larger and it goes further, I think writing things down is the point where the message can spread, and it can be like enshrined in something. So maybe something to think about for the future. Could the Little Voices sort of, language
Yeah,
handbook.
yeah, interesting.
Okay. Anyway, back onto quickfire. So when hiring, what trumps, a performance background or a teaching background?
If I had to choose, it would be a teaching background, but with a warmth and an energy. It's a warmth and an energy of teaching. Yeah.
Are we looking for someone who is a culture fit or a culture add?
Definitely a culture add. I don't need cookie cutter. I'm not looking for cookie cutter. What I'm looking for is absolutely sharing the core values and adding to that. One of
Amazing.
our franchisees said, I know it's quick fire, but one of our
Fine.
franchisees, what's so exciting about this business, Jane, is every time a new franchisee joins, we get access to another brain, like another human being. So that tells you that, everybody's valued if they're the
Yeah.
right, if they can add.
I'm doing a bit of work on trying to reverse engineer the hiring processes of some of the biggest companies in the world, and Amazon do loads on this. They have this concept of what they call bar raising, and it's exactly what you're talking about there. It's only bringing people into the organization who are going to make it better. So they have to be better on average than the people who are there already. And they actually have this scheme internally where someone is a designated bar raiser, like they have that title or they have that role, like sidecar to the job that they're doing. And it means that they're involved in lots and lots of interviews, and that they have the privileged task of essentially making the decision or asking the questions that will unearth the correct answer to should we go with this candidate or this candidate, when the hiring committee are like deadlocked between two. And the bar raiser, who has to meet a certain criteria, like they have to have worked there for a certain amount of time, they have to have conducted a number of interviews, they have to have been shadowed by somebody, they will come in and they will ask the questions to the committee that will help unearth, who is the right candidate.
Yeah.
And it's as far as sort of culture add, or maybe even like skill add, they're doing some really interesting stuff on that. I'll send you a few bits after
Yeah,
this about
send it out.
Amazon bar raiders if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next on the quick fire we have okay, so there's probably more in relation to, I guess, tutors, but are we looking at an audition or trial lesson or like a traditional sit-down Q&A interview?
Trial lessons critical part of the process, but they wouldn't get to that stage without the traditional sitting down, having a
Fine.
coffee and a chat, for sure.
Yeah, sure. So you can't have one without the other.
No.
Biggest red flag when hiring, especially in your context for roles that are required for working with children? What's the biggest red flag?
My gosh. I think this warmth, this energy thing is really important. Poor communication, inability to take feedback, being all about themselves, speaking about children in a sort of that they're a problem or a nightmare, and that happens.
Yeah.
There's people are sometimes in the wrong role. So rather than thinking about children of little human beings who are sponges and need to be helped to be supported and encouraged.
Not speaking the little voice's language.
Big one.
Biggest green flag?
Green flag, kindness, reliability, being punctual. It's a massive one for me. The lessons start on time, they finish on time. It's not just my time, it's parents' time. Being curious and the ability to just allowing people to be seen and heard. I think we're massively lacking that at the moment. And it's so important. That's all a human being wants. And certainly a child.
As far as hiring goes, CV, cover letter, or show reel?
Interesting. The first thing that would come in would be the cover letter. So that's probably the thing that is going to decide whether you open that CV now in a digital world. So how that comes in, whether they've gone the extra mile and done a video, or what the subject line was, or the content of words within that cover letter are key.
Do you get like video produced as part of people's job applications?
It's not a requirement, but we have had
But do
people
people?
say, yeah,
You
they
have
would.
that.
Yeah.
I think that's a direction that hiring should go in as well. I would be much happier watching a sort of cover lever. I would be much happier watching a cover video instead of reading a cover letter.
Sure.
I think I could sense so much more from that. Something that we're looking at, it's just, there's a bit of fear around, will the candidates that we're trying to bring on board, be brave enough to record themselves doing a video. So something that we'll see. But this is my prediction. I think we'll see more of that in hiring in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Last quickfire question, Jane. The one non-negotiable for anyone joining Little Voices in any role.
Oh, they've got to genuinely believe in helping young people to find their voice and build the confidence. It's got to be a genuine love, passion for helping those young people to find their voice. And because everything that we do, every value, every operational manual process and procedure starts from that.
Amazing. And it sounds like your dog is in agreement.
Yeah, the dog is in agreement.
Your dog is shares the same passion. When you speaking the Little Voices language, really gets going, which is awesome. Jane, listen, that's been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your lessons, sharing your failings, sharing the mistakes that you've made when it comes to hiring. It's clear that Little Voices is a people business. You know, people are the fuel that turn the engine that keep this thing going and well on into the future. We are so humbled to be able to be a small part of that journey. So thank you for trusting us with your custom. And it's been amazing just to sit down for an hour and pick your brains. I hope some of what we've been able to extract from this conversation is useful for others who are trying to take hiring more seriously, trying to do it themselves, trying to grow their own businesses. Because again, the fundamental belief is people are the most effective tool that you have in your box as an SME business owner to drive growth and to help you achieve your goals. So yeah, thank you so much, and really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me. It's been a privilege.
Amazing, thanks, Jane.
Thanks.